Hey there. I have another character for you, but one made by me. She's not a playable character, nor is she aligned to any faction. In this clip is the first time I play as her in my year-old save. The real sexy voice of Senturos will talk more on the creation of her character and story. How she was brought to life, you could say.
Hello there. I'm Rosella. You might be wondering, why do I sound like this and look like an ashy Imperial? Well, you see, I was raised here, in Skyrim, and how I got here is a kinda long story. My mother was part of a wealthy Imperial family who resided in the Imperial city all the way in Cyrodiil. When she was only 16 years old, her father married her off to a rival business partner. He had this rival that made business a nightmare. He was an old unmarried man, and he offered to join and help my grandfather's business for only one thing, my mother, and my grandfather sold her off in a heartbeat. My mother talked of the man being a vile old creep. Every night he would lie on her and try and pump air into her. She hated it, but she was able to leave his manor to buy cooking supplies or buy dresses and fancy girly things. For her safety, he sent one of his bodyguards with her. A dark elf. My mother said that he was handsome and strong. She used to buy too many things and watch him struggle to carry all her stuff back. She kept doing this. One day, when it was time to go and buy things, she come out to find this dark elven bodyguard with a cart. She laughed so hard, and she tells me this was the day she fell in love. He was strong, good-looking and funny. It was like she had just found someone to be herself around. Someone she could be around without needing to give anything in return. She told me she would catch him staring at her. She was forced into a marriage with a man 3 times her age, and well, this dark elf would have been older, since they lived for around 400 years. But he was still a young elf. She would spend time talking to him when her husband was away, chatting away and pestering him. She would talk about her life to him, how she hated it. She would ask him all sorts of personal questions. Following the months of their friendship, they had grown quite close. And when her husband sent her off to buy food, he followed. She snuck off in the corner of his eyes down a dark alley. He ran to her to make sure she was okay. But when he arrived, he found her unlaced dress on the floor. She told me his eyes were looking into oblivion, and his jaw had run off to the white gold tower. For many months they would continue this, leave the house and express their love. But after some time, my mother was feeling ill. She knew she was pregnant. Her husband was so happy that he was going to have an heir. But one day, while walking down his manor's hallway, he overheard my mother's panic and his bodyguard, talking about what if it's yours, my love. If the baby comes out with grey skin or red eyes or both, he'll kill us all. And after hearing that, he was so angry. He couldn't just walk in there and kill them both. My father would have slain him on the spot. So being the vile creature he was, my mother's husband hired assassins to ambush them both in a quiet place while they were out shopping. Unfortunately, both my mother and father had no idea of this. And well on the event of expressing their love, they gave the assassins the perfect place to ambush them. My father, for that day, would be her bodyguard and do his job down to the very end. As she told me, in the event of their love-making, hooded men come running down the alley with blades out. He jumped into action with no clothes on and screamed at my mother to run. He told her that his boss and her husband must have figured them out. He told her to run back to her father. And she did. She ran back home with next to nothing on, screaming and crying in her mother's arms. She told her father that her husband tried to kill her, and she told him why. He was disgusted in her. He called her a little whore, who threw it all away for some merc, but she was still his blood. He sent his men to deal with her husband. But my father's body was found sitting against a wall down that very alley with 3 dead assassins around him.
I'll catch up with you later.
Grandfather
Take
waited
care.
until she had given birth, and I come out looking like my dad, ash skin and red eyes. My grandfather was disgusted. He banished my mother from the family. He gave her a bag of septims and told her to never come back. So she didn't. She made her way to Skyrim. My mother met another man, a battle mage, who raised me as his own and taught me everything I know. And that is how I'm here. There is so much to tell for what I've done here in Skyrim, but that That's for another time.
Now, the real Senturos is back, and I've got another story for you guys. But this is this is an original one from me, not from Skyrim. So this character is called a Rosella. Now I actually want to show you how I made it. Now, when a lot of armor mods come out, like really fine armor mods, I try to make characters out of them. I don't usually use skimpy armors at all, unless of course it's for the women of the north. And I saw this armor come out called the Cocoa Rose armor, and it looks very sort of like fantasy fire mage outfit, and that's what I wanted to make. I wanted to make a fire mage that was like beautiful, and she knew it, and so she'd wear that sort of gear. Let me show you the arm mod real quick. Here it is right here. Now it's obviously a little bit skimpy. Thankfully these images have somewhat their parts covered up, but I wanted to make some sort of like elusive Imperial battle mage that was like strictly a fire mage only. And of course I tried doing the armor thing, but it's made for the Cocoa body. Like the full-on entirely different sort of physics where I use the Ali body slide to create bodies, and I ended up giving it up. But I didn't give the character up. I completely made an entirely new. I kept the fire mage sort of thing, so she's still a fire mage, and I kept the character and I called her Rosella. First she came out as an ordinary looking Imperial with like sort of Aubrey hair, but then I decided I'd change her and make her a half-breed. And I did that. I gave her ashy skin and red sort of eyes to kind of give off this. She was a half-breed. Now, in Test law, you come out whatever your mother is, but you can share some things that your father had, and her father was a dark elf. Ashy skin, red eyes. And there's even a slight point to her ears, but she'll always remain an Imperial. And so, boom, my head exploded, full of potential story. So, I created her, I put her into Skyrim, I went and talked to her. She had an odd accent. I was like, fuck. But then I went, wait, I could use that. So I did. She was an Imperial raised in Skyrim. Cover me guts up here. I don't have Rona. And then my story went crazy, and I kind of went the whole bodyguard thing, where she was, young, 16 years of age, which is pretty fucking bad, but I try to keep it as a mature story, sort of based on the sort of things of times that these games are inspired from. Oh, pardon myself. So, she was married when she was 16, fell in love with the bodyguard of her husband's, had a bit of fun with him, cheated on her husband, blah blah, and she fell pregnant for it. And the baby came out looking like an ashy little Imperial, but her father was killed when her husband found out, because he tried to kill him for the betrayal and because the baby wasn't going to be his and all this sort of crap. And so that's where this entire story comes from. And shares a bit of, I got a bit of the story inspired from a show called Outlander, where it's not the exact same, but this man, he loses his wife, and he's living on his own. He's living as a servant in a royal English family, and the daughter, the youngest daughter, wants to smash him, and she demands that he should, and so he does, and he goes and sleeps with her. This English, like, powerful family's daughter, and she's married off to an old sleazebag, and she falls pregnant, and she has the other man's baby. And the same thing kind of happens. I think he finds out and tries to kill her, and of course the servant, the secret father, actually kills her husband to save the child, which nobody knows is his. But I kind of took that, some inspirations from the Outlander story, because that is a cool as fuck show. If you have not watched it, so it's a bit of a love story, adventure story, and a time travel story of a woman from the 1940s that travels back in time like the 1700s. And it's highly recommend. Like, I'm a straight dude, I love the titties, but that was some good as fuck. And plus you see a lot of titties. I mean, the actress, she is gorgeous, and she's actually got a kid off a lot, so add a bonus. Now, yeah, this is where the story starts from, so hopefully you will enjoy Rosella's story. I'll do these sort of voiceovers at the very end, of course, if there's an original character by me, because again, if I've created it, it's not going to have any Skyrim basis, and you're not going to know who the hell or what the hell it is, so that's how I created this character, and I hope you guys enjoy.